Today's show is sponsored by Enigma Elements. As filmmakers, we're always looking for ways to level up production value of our projects and speed up our workflow. This is why I created Enigma Elements, your one-stop shop for film grains, color grading LUTs, vintage analog textures like VHS and CRT images, smoke, fog textures, DaVinci Resolve presets, and much more. After working as an editor, colorist, post, and VFX supervisor for almost 30 years, I know what film creatives need to level up their projects. Check out enigmaelements.com and use the coupon code IFH10 to get 10% off your order. I'll be adding new elements all the time. Again, that's Enigma, ENIGMA, elements.com. So I wanted to go back a little bit to Mariachi because Mariachi well, first of all, for me, it was, again, an integral part of my growing up. I mean, I was working at a video store in 91 when that was released. I was in high school still.
With acquaintance.
Yeah, very Quentin-esque. Yes.
The film school.
Yes, that was my film school as well.
I love it.
So I was working at a video store. I still have my El Mariachi video store poster, by the way. I've got 2 copies of it. I stole 2 from the video store. I've never gotten rid of them. And my wife's like, what are you going to do with those? I'm like, don't worry. One day I'll put them up and I have them. But I always have them. Always have them. And I remember when it came out and it blew my mind because it was the first time, to be honest, it was the first time I ever saw a Latino filmmaker. It was at any level in Hollywood, really, and there obviously had been Latino filmmakers before, but no one that really took the stage like Robert and what you and Robert did. And obviously, and I talk about El Mariachi constantly throughout the years of this show, purely because I go, look, man, you guys people still talk about mariachi. It's an urban myth at this point. It's an urban myth. They still talk about mariachi like, oh, you remember like mariachi. If he could do it for $7,000, I could do it. I'm like, it was 1991. It was a very special time. It was the birth of the independent film movement, the Sundance independent film movement, with Rick and Edward Burns and Kevin Smith and Quentin and Soderbergh and that decade.
That was a very specific time.
It was a very specific time, and I always told I had Edward Burns on the show, and I asked him.
Oh wow, yeah.
I had Eddie on the show, and I asked Ed. I go, Ed, if Brothers McMullen came out today, would you think it would do anything? He goes, probably not. And I'd argue that if Mariachi showed up today, it'd be difficult to cut through the noise. Because originally, from what I heard, and that's nothing against the movie, because there's a lot.
No, I agree with you. I totally agree with you.
It was just that time, and then of course all the blocks that hit, Robert Newman and that whole thing.
Yeah.
But it was because of course the story of Mariachi is he was just going to do something for the Mexican video market. It was never actually supposed to ever be released in English. It was just like his practice film, all this kind of stuff. I have to ask you, what was it like being in the center of that hurricane? Because that must have been a whirlwind. Because I read the book. Obviously, I have it back there. It's a Bible for any filmmaker to listen to watch. But what was it like being in the center of that? Because, oh my God,
incredible. No, it truly. I'll tell you. Let me begin with the fact that the seed for it. One of the things that Robert was always confounded by was that he would hear people say, oh, well, if you go to film school, your short film in film school will cost $100,000, $150,000, $200,000. And, he comes from a family of 10. We had, it's not like my job paid a lot of money, but we were able to stay out of debt, which is a big one. That's a big one. Mm-hmm. I tell people out of college debt, and I talk to young kids about this. It was, and I told Robert, I said, we can't be in debt because you won't be able to be free, to go do and take what you need to take. Right. So my most important thing for Robert was that he continued to go to school and to get a camera. So when he did Bedhead, his first semester of film was to get a hold of a film camera because he thought without a film camera, I can't go to festivals kind of thing, without it being on film, really, truly, to the bigger festivals. And so when he was able, and everybody else was spending thousands of dollars, $2,000 And he's like, we don't have that kind of money. So because of his abilities, and his siblings, he wrote something that he already, just like Mariachi. What do I have? I got my kid, my little siblings. I can do something interesting with them. And he had the film camera, which was an MOS film camera. It was just a 16
tank,
tiny one of those, the crank up ones.
So it wasn't even crystals. Yeah, it was just a crank.
It was first year production.
It was probably was either a Bolex or an Airy, one of those old. It was a probably Bolex. It's one of those old ones, yeah.
So he ended up spending, including transferring the film, editing the film, and everything, $800, which he had gone to Primaco to get lab tested. Mm-hmm. So he had a little money to do that with. And in the meantime, I was helping with whatever, pay for his semester or whatever needed to happen. And he was doing a comic strip that he got $8 a day whenever he did that comic strip. So he made a couple $100 a month. And so that started sort of like his ability to go, okay, $800, 8 minutes, $8,000, 80 minutes. That was the seed. Okay?
Wow.
From there is when he thought, I can make a feature for like, I don't know, 8,000, 10,000. So he talked to Carlos Gallardo.
Yeah.
And he and I got married in January of 1990, got married. And so this is now a year later when he's already, then the film started going to festivals and started winning things. Mm-hmm. So he was like, okay, this is possible, Mm-hmm. Oh, and he also did the animation. And interestingly enough, his professor at the time was like, Robert, you already have an A. And Robert looked at him and he was like, dude, this is not about getting an A. It's fast for me. This is. So anyway, and I helped him with whatever. I filled in the little cockroach wings on the animation. I did.
Oh, it's so great. Yeah.
I'm one of those. Very, very. It was a very sweet time, for us. And then, so he had some friends that borrowed a 16S. He had been writing, and they'd been talking about it. So some guys he'd met at the Access Channel, in Austin, mm-hmm. And so. Those guys said, yeah, we can let you borrow it so you can go shoot Mariachi. But he'd been writing it. He'd been doing it, taking sophomore year semester. But he was kind of like, hey, let somebody else write that movie and I'll be a part of it and blah, blah, blah. So then he was writing it in the computers at the office. So he would stay there longer. We worked together. I worked in that office still. And, and everybody was so kind because he loved these people too, just like me. So it was a wonderful group of folks mm-hmm. that loved him and loved us, right. And what he was doing. They saw the passion, and how much he gave to the office. Anytime there was a birthday, he'd do a beautiful, he's an amazing artist. So mm-hmm. do a beautiful little poster in full Prismacolor, like really funny stuff, like caricature, but funny. Most people in the office were part of his comic strip. They started getting in there as characters, including the executive, Dr. Funk. So, for him, if it hadn't been that we worked in that place, it would have been harder. There's no computer,
right.
No free time in between classes to sit there and answer phones while we were doing other things so he could continue to write a script. Right. And then he was ready to go. And then he went to Pharmaco for a month, and that's where he finished writing the script. So it all kind of converged together. It's the right combination of having the right people around you that are supportive. And then Carlos and he already had done so many short films, and Carlos was dialed in. They'd shot there before many short films. So everybody knew them as these kids that loved to do this stuff. So Carlos had they wrote everything around, Robert wrote everything around what he knew he had. That is really what he did. So went down there, and then he gets a phone call about 10 days in, and the guys need the camera back. So they're under the gun. There's like, we gotta, and he didn't answer the phone, because there were no cell phones back then, so he could pretend he didn't hear that. And I'm like, they're calling me, and they're asking for the camera. And he goes, okay, I need till the weekend. So the 14 days of shooting, thank God he was able to kind of stretch it so that he could do that, and then drove back with all the film, transferred it to 3/4 inch, and then edited at the Austin Access. So all of that together is what leads to, if I tell people, if Robert got $1 paid for every hour he spent crafting Mariachi. Forget me, forget Carlos, forget anybody. It would have cost
Millions.
$100,000. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Easily. I mean, easily. The budget would not be what it is. Plus, he also did not make a film print. So that's why it's not 30-some thousand dollars. People are like, he didn't make it for, I mean, still, it's, urban myth kind of thing.
Oh, no.
No, he didn't make a film print. Columbia Pictures made a film print for him.
Right.
But the sound is, the sound guys in this past movie said, so I heard that Columbia spent $200,000 in sound because the sound on Mariachi. I said, true, not true.
So what's the okay? So this is the urban myth that I've heard about this. Like, okay, everyone's like, because I've had to defend Robert's honor many times at film festivals, at film festivals and things like that. They're like, that's all BS. That's all press. That Columbia, he never made a movie for $7,000. And I'm like, look, he made the movie for $7,000. He transferred the movie onto 3/4-inch tape because I remember I used to
developing. By the way, the film and the development of the film really is what cost $7,000, and transferring to $7,000. The rest of it was his own time. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So then, from what I understand, he transferred it to 3/4-inch. He cut it. He cut it at the axis. Tape to tape. No, I did. That was my first job. I was cutting reels for a commercial house in Miami. And I know the Sony. I know the Sony very well. No. So I edited on the exact same machine he edited on 3/4-inch. It's 3/4-inch because you couldn't afford beta. That was really expensive. So you couldn't do beta. You had to beta speed.
I love the spelling. It's not true because it is true.
You're right. So all of that, and I mean, and I read, of course, in the book, like he stayed overnight and he couldn't leave because of the alarm. So he had to pee in a jug of water. Like all these stories. So you hear all this, but then they go. True. So they always talk about, well, how about the audio? And I go, from my understanding, and this is what I understand, and I've read all the books and I've done all the research. I've studied Robert in depth, especially during that period of time.
Yes,
of course.
He's wonderful.
To my understanding, when Columbia got it, they obviously remastered they went back to the print or to the negative. Remastered it, all that stuff, but the sound is what cost them a good amount of money to redo because you had to redub everything.
I'll tell you why. So he had it was a 16S, an RE 16S, no sound.
Right.
So he had a Marantz tape recorder and a $50 mic and a box of TDK tapes. Literally a box.
That's insane.
Cassette tapes, the kind that
no, old school, with a pencil, pencil. You're good.
Those very much, yes. And since these guys were non-actors, they kind of said things at the same rhythm, so he could match the mouths, pretty well. So he would go through the paces, all the Foley, like they put the glass down, like think about the scene in the bar with those three guys. Mm-hmm. The beer, the thing. All the sounds, the sound. So he would go up and redo the whole scene for sound.
After it was shot, so it's not sunk.
After done. And by the way, and he would grab when the beer was being poured. So he grabbed that kind of stuff. The glass hitting that same table. So he was kind of doing Foley/sound, and they would go through, say all the words again, because he didn't have a sound guy with the none of that.
And it wasn't as cheap as it is today because now all this equipment's super cheap.
So exactly.
Super affordable.
So that's what I was explaining to my sound guys in this past movie. And I said, so what happened is, Jimmy Honore from Columbia Pictures, the post-production guy, comes all the way to Texas to pick up the elements, quote unquote. Yeah. So he goes away with he brings this big bag. I mean, the film didn't even fit. The TDK tapes, just the little box, here it is. And Jimmy is sitting there in our apartment going,
¿Qué es esta locura? ¿Qué es esta locura?
He can't even believe it. And by the way, really good sound because he took the time to get so much stuff.
Clean.
Now, mind you, you're never going to be able to project this movie with that sound necessarily, unless you transfer it. And they only sweeten things. You can talk to Sergio and Tenny. They can tell you there were mixers at Columbia. Mm-hmm. And yes, they spent money because in order to put something on the big screen like they were planning on it,
sweeten
festivals, you can't show something that's in cassette tapes.
Of course
obviously,
not.
right? So, but they used all that sound. There was no ADR, man. There was none of that.
Wait, so there was
None.
no. Oh wait. So there's no ADR for sound. But how about
No
dialogue?
ADR for sound.
Dialogue.
There was no ADR for sound. There was some Foley. I saw that Foley happen, but Robert had gotten so many of the sounds in place. They used whatever they could use. They just sweetened it.
Wow.
So, by the way, I mean, we're talking Columbia Pictures, Sergio Anteni, their biggest guys.
Oh no.
Because Sergio is Latino, Anteni's a cool guy. They're like, we'll do this. This will be fun. Robert's
nobody
fun.
nobody wanted to do this.
Sergio Reyes just passed away. He has still been our mixer all of these years.
Oh wow.
Pretty much every single movie. He even moved to Austin, so he has mixed everything. Sergio has.
So okay,
so he can tell.
So there was,
now he's passed away with all the the truth, which is this is the truth. I know it because we've talked about it so much.
So okay,
people still think it's bullshit.
So then basically it was all sweetening. Was there ADR? Did all the talent have to come back in? And so all the dialogue,
all from the TDK cassette tapes.
No joda.
All of it.
So the dialogue as well.
The dialogue, there was never ADR, man. Never. Nope.
Holy.
I mean, incredible.
So they just basically put it in their system, sweetened it up, made it professional, surround sound. They did as best as they could.
Everything they needed to do, yeah, exactly.
And then
Robert himself cut the film, made a film print from his cut 3/4 inch. They sat there with the camera looking at it.
So because there was no EDL. There was no
Robert
EDL.
himself literally did this, and
he
film
did a frame.
Like a regular person would.
Like an
He recreated. That's what I'm talking about. For every dollar.
My God!
Yes, the amount of time Robert gave to this is pretty incredible.
Oh my God! So
by the way, when I saw the film, because I'm a critic, I'm a critic as not only as a wife but as a film person. I love film. And I said to him when I saw Mariachi in the 3/4 inch version before he went to LA with it, I said, you know what? I give it 3 out of 5 for the movie. If I saw this movie, it's a 3 out of 5. If I saw it not knowing anything.
Rough audience.
But knowing the story of how you made this and how much it cost, this is a 5 out of 5. You go out there and tell that story. And we agreed that was really the thing. And by the way, what he wanted to do also was, he was a kid that never thought he could do it because he heard there was so much cloak, like these huge cloak curtains that you just did not touch as a Latino, as a kid from a family of 10 or a family of 7.
Sure, I know. Yeah.
You financially, no, and to go to a family, we are in awe of like Rick Linklater and Tarantino who dared, but Robert decided to go, and just open the curtain, and the wizard behind it is who exactly? Let's look at the wizard, please. Okay, there's no wizard. It's just keeping people out. So that's what he felt he had to do, which is why he convinced Columbia Pictures. It was Laserdiscs back then.
Oh, I know. I had the Laserdisc.
Yeah, that for the first time, a movie like El Mariachi, because it was all Criterion, you didn't get to have
audio commentaries. No, you're right. You're right.
You didn't. Nobody did.
Nobody.
Unless it was Criterion, and it was like
$125, and it was $125. Yeah.
Absolutely. Or Robert convincing this amazing guy named Clint Culpepper, who was so full of joy and enthusiasm for what was going on, and he's still a dear friend. And Clint and Robert, he was like, we're doing this. And he convinced Clint Culpepper and Robert convinced Columbia Pictures to do a Laserdisc with the commentary. So to dispel the myths, but people still think that it's not true, and it is. It's so beautiful because it is all really true. Robert said, people were really angry. Some of them at Sundance that he had been what do they call it? Media trained. No. By the way, Robert is one of the most shy humans in a lot of ways. He's very quiet, very shy. You give him a microphone. It's the opposite of of the
Stage fright, yeah.
the frog from Warner Brothers. Hello, my baby. Hello, my dad. You give a microphone. That's Robert backwards. You give that man a microphone because he got so excited about taking all that cloak and dagger stuff of filmmaking, and that's been his life.
Oh, he is a troublemaker.
We are troublemakers.
You guys are Troublemaker Studios. And that was the thing and that's one of the things that I obviously found an immense inspiration from Mariachi and Desperado and Robert and your career moving forward. But I've never seen the amount of hate, bitterness of people that like, he got in because of this or that. And because when you see someone who has, he got lucky. Mira, lucky and lucky no, okay? Look, lucky is lucky.
Sweat equity, man. Sweat equity.
Listen, lucky will get you in the door, but it doesn't keep you there.